Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to be talking about MMA Cultists, but before some MMA fans get their knickers in a twist and start posting how much of a cunt I am, let me just say I'm a pretty huge MMA fan myself. I really enjoy watching the sport. I've had a few matches myself with mates in various gyms. None of us are particularly great, but I've got a little bit of experience with it, and it is something I'd like to do competitively in the future, but I simply don't have time to fit into my schedule at the moment due to already doing martial arts training and training in the gym as well. But I do want to do it in the future. I do have a massive amount of respect for the sport. Um, so yeah, this isn't aimed at all MMA fans. This is just aimed at the kind of MMA fans who think that anything which doesn't work in MMA or UFC is automatically bullshit, and that MMA teaches you absolutely everything you need to learn in order to defend yourself. This is simply bullshit. So I think that MMA is quite often a good place to start when it comes to looking at techniques and looking at which techniques work and which techniques don't. It's a useful starting point, but it's not the be-all and end-all of the situation. You have to ask yourself, why don't these techniques work? Now, when it comes to various flashy, spinny kicks and stuff, which you'd get in certain kung fu styles and capoeira, uh, when you're looking at those techniques, I think it's quite reasonable to say that if they're not working in MMA, then they're probably not going to be effective techniques to use on the street. Yeah, they may well work against an untrained opponent, but against an untrained opponent, why not rely on techniques which are simply reliable anyway? And what if you underestimate them? So yeah, certain techniques, I think it's fair to look at and say, hey, it's not working in MMA, therefore it's probably not going to work in it's not going to work in reality. Cause there's not any reasons in the rules as to why that technique's not going to be effective. It's not due to protective equipment or anything like that. It's because the technique is just shit, basically. But other techniques, this isn't the case. MMA is a good simulation of a fight, but it's not perfect. There's lots of ways where a real self-defense situation could be massively different to an MMA match. So for a start, you're wearing gloves. Now this does change optimal punching mechanics somewhat. Lots of martial artists don't seem to understand this, but yeah, the way you'd actually punch in a street fight should be different to how you punch whilst you're wearing gloves. You're also in an enclosed area, and the area is the same every time. You're not learning how to use your environment to your advantage in various situations. That's quite different. You're also only ever against a single attacker. So I've heard various MMA cultists say, well, no martial art can teach you how to deal with multiple attackers anyway. If any martial art does that, it's bullshit. No, that's wrong. So even if a martial art only raised your chance of survival against multiple people trying to kill you from 5% to 30%, or hell, even 10%, that is a useful thing to know. And there are techniques for dealing with multiple attackers. Most of the time I've been attacked in my life, it's been by multiple attackers. So yeah, I'm gonna want to learn how to deal with those kind of situations. So for a start, you're going to have to use techniques to not get yourself surrounded. You may well want to take more risks and end the fight quicker because your stamina simply isn't going to last as long as the stamina of two or more people who can get in there and then back off while the other person's in there, and you're just going to be on your toes the entire time, just getting more and more tired. In that sort of situation, you're going to want to take a lot more risks than you would in a one-on-one fight. You're going to want to use your environment to your advantage more. You're going to be wanting to look for escape routes if possible and that kind of thing. So these are all things which MMA simply doesn't teach. Um, There's also no weapons in MMA. You know, on the street, someone could come at you with a knife. You could be in a situation where you might want to use an improvised weapon, such as such as a stick or a chair or something like that. MMA doesn't teach any of those things. I'm not saying it should. You know, MMA isn't about that. It's about one-on-one fighting, and that's fine as long as you don't try and extrapolate MMA into being a perfect system for ultimate all-round self-defense. There's also round timers. Now, if I was in a fight and I had 5 seconds left, I may want to go for some risky takedown technique or something like that potentially, which may leave myself vulnerable. But if I know I've only got to defend myself for 5 seconds afterwards, you know, that's all well and good. In a street fight, that isn't going to happen. You know, they're not just going to magically stop 5 seconds later at some arbitrary point. So yeah, the way you fight in MMA is quite different. A sporting environment is very different to a real life situation, and you need to be aware of this if you want to actually learn self defense in an effective manner. Also, contrary to what a lot of people seem to think, MMA is a very long way from being no holds barred. There are a lot of rules. So yeah, I'll flash those up all on the screen. But yeah, we've got no holding or grabbing the fence, no holding or grabbing shorts and gloves, no headbutting, no biting, no hair pulling, no fish hooking, no placing a finger into an orifice, cut or laceration, no eye gouging, no groin attacks, no downward pointing elbow strikes, no small joint manipulation. The list goes on and on and on. So, yeah, there are many techniques which will utilize, there are many martial arts which will utilize some of these techniques. A lot of them, you know, have been very watered down in the last sort of 30, 40, 50 years. But there are a lot of techniques which do utilize these kind of techniques. The counter argument I hear from MMA cultists is, well, in a street fight where the other person's fighting dirty, I can just fight dirty as well, so we're still going to be on a level playing field. No, if the other person has actually drilled these techniques and honed their reflexes to actually do these sorts of maneuvers, that whereas you haven't, you are going to be at a disadvantage. They're not that simple to pull off all of the time. Often, you know, some of these dirty tactics can be quite technical in and of themselves, and they are useful techniques to learn when it comes to defending yourself. And yeah, MMA is fantastic, but you know, if your instructor isn't telling you that, hey, you know, this is how you should fight in a ring with these rules in place, but in a real situation they may well do this, this, and this, and so you may want to defend yourself differently. If they're not teaching you that, and you're thinking that this is you're learning some ultimate self-defense system, you're simply wrong in those cases. Yeah, if you're looking out for those sorts of techniques, if you're trying to avoid somebody poking you in the eye and fish hooking you, etc., you're going to be fighting differently to how you'd be fighting when those rules are prohibited. So, no, MMA is not the be-all and end-all of self-defense. It's a very, very good tool, but it's not perfect, and if anyone's telling you otherwise, they're an idiot. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I've given you something to think about if you were an MMA cultist. Hopefully I've even changed your mind on a few things. So thanks for watching, comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.